In this video, we'll review the SNAP application. SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. SNAP is a program to help you buy food for good health. Previously, it was known as food stamps, but that term is no longer used. Feel free to read through this wording on your own. That way, when you fill out the application, you will be familiar with what is needed ahead of time, and you won't have to read through it while the client is sitting there with you. Page 1 is basic contact information for the client, listing their name, address, date of birth, and social security number. The client will have to sign in the signature box on the first page and also on page 7. If they don't sign these pages, the DCBS office will not accept the application. It is very important to answer the next question on every SNAP application you complete. You will always mark the Yes option and write Telephone Interview on the line. The Department for Community-Based Services, or DCBS, prefer telephone interviews. Meeting by phone is certainly easier on our clients than waiting in the office for long periods of time. If the client requires a translator, either because they are a member of the limited English-speaking population or due to deafness, please mark Yes on the last question on the page. If the client does not require this type of assistance, please answer the question by marking No. On the top of every page, starting with the second page, you will fill in the client's name and social security number. You can review the information on page 2 and 3 with the client or allow them to review the information on their own. If they have a representative that they want to help them with this process, you will need to list their name, mailing address, and phone number on page 2 under the Representative section. That would not be you as a volunteer, but might be a family member, power of attorney, or guardian. On page 3, you must provide information regarding the client's household. You will list everybody in the household. Keep in mind that households for SNAP purposes are different than what we typically perceive a household to be. We typically think of a household as meaning everyone who lives under the same roof. In cases of SNAP, a household is defined by who buys and prepares the food together. So if people live together but buy and prepare their food separately, then you would only list the relevant household. You wouldn't list the people who buy and prepare their food separately. So you would put the basic information here for every person in the household. Use the appropriate codes listed for ethnicity and race in these two columns, and remember to fill in this first column with a yes or no as to whether that person is applying for SNAP. A lot of the times, the first column is overlooked as to whether they're going to be applying or not. Typically, you are applying for everyone in the household, but not always. Please note that at the bottom of page 3, there is important information which states that all members of the household applying for the SNAP benefits agree to follow all work and training rules. This refers to a recent change in the law. In some counties in Kentucky, a special SNAP rule is applied to able-bodied adults that do not have dependents. An older adult or disabled individual will not fall under these work or training rules. These next set of questions on page 4 can be a little difficult to ask people you have never met before, but you are going to have to ask them. The first question in this section asks if anyone in the home has a Kentucky EBT card. EBT stands for Electronic Benefit Transfer. The EBT card is the card used to purchase groceries. In Kentucky, it looks like a credit card and has an American flag on the front. If the person is attending college or trade school, or if they receive SNAP benefits from another state, it must be documented in the next two questions. The remainder of the questions will be the most difficult to ask. However, in order for the DCBS office to process the application, the client's answers must be noted. These questions include asking the client if they have been convicted or provided wrong information regarding who they are, where they live, or if they tried to obtain benefits for more than one household at any given time. The client must answer if they are a fleeing felon, if they have been convicted of a drug felony, if anyone in the home has been convicted of buying, selling, or trading more than $500 in SNAP benefits since August 22, 1996. If anyone in their home has been convicted of trading SNAP benefits for firearms, ammunition, explosives, or for drugs since August 22, 1996. If any of the answers to these questions are yes, you can inform the client that the DCBS office will seek additional information before making a decision on their application. The next section will obtain information regarding the household expenses. This section of the application is extremely important. When determining SNAP eligibility, DCBS will look at the client's net income. Net income is determined after the gross income is deducted by certain expenses. DCBS requires proof of these expenses before the application will be processed. Refer to the instruction sheet to know what expense documentation is required to be submitted with the application. Determining if a person falls within the income guidelines can be difficult. The best policy is to complete the application, submit all required documentation, and allow the DCBS office to determine the client's eligibility. Next is the question about medical expenses. The amount of the SNAP monthly award will be calculated in part by these particular costs. Therefore, showing proof of all out-of-pocket medical costs will be extremely beneficial to the client. When calculating the total cost of medical expenses, you must always include the Medicare Part B premium, unless the client receives assistance through a Medicare savings program. Do not make assumptions as to the total of the premium. Always ask the client for this information. Then include any other monthly medical expenses. If they have large medical bills, you can include them as well. It is typically good to divide larger medical bills up to show a monthly payment plan. Again, the client will need proof of these expenses. If they have a supplement, also known as Medigap insurance, that premium also counts, as well as the Part D drug plan premium and drug copays they pay at the pharmacy. If they have any daycare expenses for a child or adult, list who gets the care, who pays for the care, and the amount they pay for the care. If anyone is paying court-ordered child support, the amount and who pays the child support needs to be listed. If anyone helps pay for the expenses other than the client, you need to list which expenses they are getting help to pay, who is helping pay the expense, and how much they are paying. The next section talks about assets. List the total money everyone has in cash or bank credit union accounts or stocks, bonds, savings certificates, or other assets. The following section is about income. As with every other application, you always use gross income. You would put who gets the money, the amount per month they receive, and the employer if applicable. I typically will put a slash through the categories where that person doesn't have income, so that when the DCBS offices reviewing the application know there is nothing in this category, it's not like it was omitted, it's just there isn't any income. Next are the questions to ask if they have been hired and not paid or quit a job in the last 30 days, a migrant or seasonal farm worker, or on strike. Before giving the application to the client, be sure that you put the client's name and Social Security number at the top of each page. Also, make sure that the client signs in the signature box that is located on page 7. Next, the client needs to read over the following sections: SNAP rules, SNAP penalties, what will be done with your information, the Privacy Act, and we check what you tell us. Next, the client should add their signature and date. Other sections consist of what the terms mean, how to get a hearing, and an optional release of information. The release of information allows the DCBS office to obtain information about the client and members of their household without getting a signature. The DCBS office will still ask for the information, but at least they can access it without needing proof of the signature. There is an instruction sheet that we give clients for the SNAP application. You should put the date you assisted the client with completing the SNAP application. This reminds them it is their responsibility to review and complete the application, and they need to make sure everything listed is accurate before submitting. List the county that the person lives in and the address of the DCBS office in that county. Next is a list of all the supporting documents that are needed to accompany the application. You can choose to highlight things that are not applicable because child care cost or child support payment may not be applicable for a lot of the clients we are assisting. The next section tells the client that DCBS office has 30 days to process their application if they have submitted all the documents needed. The last page is the receipt of SNAP application. This is intended for the DCBS office to complete and sign. That way, the client will have proof that they submitted the application and all their supporting documents. If the DCBS employee refuses to sign the receipt, the client should ask that they date stamp the document. The client should obtain the employee's name and make note of it on the receipt. That's it. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Our number is 1-866-516-3051.